Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our first of 6 town halls as part of Family Empowerment Month. Join us next week for 3 more town halls, starting with Addiction and Recovery on Monday, March 4th at noon, followed by Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities town halls later in the week. We also hope to see you on March 19th in Albany for our in-person Family Empowerment Day rally and march. Be sure to register today for that. Today, I'm so pleased to be able to welcome our Commissioner of the State Education Department, Commissioner Betty Rosa. If you've attended or seen recordings of our town halls in the past, you know that the Commissioner has been very devoted to making sure that the lines of communication between families and young people and the state agency, the State Education Department, are open and that they really are truly listening to us. And so I wanted to take an opportunity first to just say thank you, Commissioner, for continuing to come back every year and to address the questions and concerns that families and young people have for your department, and also to have the opportunity to tell legislators a little bit more about what your agency is doing. We will have joining us in just a few minutes, Senator Mayer, who is the chair of the Education Department or the Education Committee in the Senate. So I'm going to turn it over to the Commissioner just to say a few words about her agency and what they're up to. Commissioner?
Sure. Thank you. Always a pleasure to be with you and to obviously engage in a dialogue with our parents and our communities. It's really critical that there's a clear understanding that these forums provide us with opportunities to engage. Very, very excited about many of the things that we're doing in the department around, whether it's around the issue of literacy, the science of reading. We've been having some amazing both in-person, hybrid, and conversations around how do we support our young early foundational work around literacy. And we're doing the same thing with math and science. Obviously, we're trying to really use our students' natural curiosity that they bring to school and create opportunities for not only using our standards work, but the application of these standards so that they come alive. Another exciting issue is that we're looking at how our families connect with libraries, museums, as a way of extending and creating extended platforms for our students' learning, where families can be together and do things that model the kinds of opportunities for our children to see us all in the space of really enjoying family through reading process, families through visiting museums. And so all of those components, we do have a state museum here, as you know. Today we had a wonderful meeting with the president of the American Museum, the National Museum, in looking to how do we build those connections. And I have to tell you that the excitement of working with the American Museum of Natural History is so potentially exciting for us statewide, and knowing that our children can have from the entire state opportunities to support the kind of exciting work they're doing around teacher residency, and then having student residency programs in the STEAM, in both science, arts, and math and technology. So that's another area. Of course, we just concluded, as most of you may know, our BRC, our Blue Ribbon Commission, to find multiple ways of having our students demonstrate their successes. And so that is very, very exciting. 12 recommendations. If the parents need copy, we do have online, so they can actually go online and see the commission's work. It's taken us over 3 years, especially 4 years because of COVID. But this is exciting work that we're trying to build the foundation, early start, all the way through through middle school and high school and preparing our students for college, college and career, not just, college. And CTE has been a lot of great work, a lot of work around also making sure that we are connecting our teacher training at the higher ed, so our teachers are prepared. We do have a venture with the Hunts Institute for our students with dyslexia, dysgraphia on the issue of dyslexia. So we will be working on that commission as well. So a lot of really interesting work around our core, which is learning, and two major components: the learning and as well as development. We are very, very much committed to healthcare and mental health as part of the equation. We know that, we believe in this SSS, as we call it, safe and supportive schools, in order for our children to really be in the kinds of environments for learning purposes. So I'm going to stop there, and obviously there's a lot that I can go on about, but visit our website. There's a lot of exciting things in the area of learning, in the area of STEAM, our connections with extended platforms, and also in looking at ways that we can support our young people to really think about opportunities to be in spaces where they can do project-based capstone, really exciting work with our business partners, and exciting work in our communities to really truly explore and support the learning process beyond the four walls of the classroom. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And again, we do appreciate your time and the value that you place on our perspectives. So thank you again for being here. When Senator Mayer joins us, I'll jump in, or Brad, if you don't mind, you could just introduce the senator when she hops on. I want to turn it over to Brad Hansen, who is our Director of Public Policy at Families Together. Brad is involved in everything public policy related to the organization. So that's pretty much everything. So Brad, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then Brad's going to moderate the panel or the group of questions for today. Brad?
Thanks, Paige, and welcome everybody. I'm so glad that so many people are here on 5 o'clock on a Monday. I'm Brad Hansen, the Public Policy Director at Families Together in New York State, as Paige said, and we are all fired up. March 19th is coming fast. We have town halls that we'll be having, like Paige said, next week. We'll have 3 more, followed by 2 more. And we have a lot to talk about in the education space. And I want to queue up Jennifer Sibley, who has a question about mental health in schools. So
Sure.
Jennifer, how about we queue you up?
Hi, and good afternoon. As Brad said, my name is Jennifer Sibley. I am a family peer advocate and a supervisor of family peer advocates here in the North Country, as well as a mom of 2. And my question today is: the governor has made commitments to bolster school-based mental health clinics for every school that wants one, as well as teen mental health first aid training. Furthermore, the state education department published a task force report that issued recommendations regarding safe and supportive schools and school discipline that would complement efforts to promote solutions, not suspensions.
Mhm.
While we support these initiatives, we think every school needs a mental health clinic, and that more could be done to build more behavioral health interventions, supports, and programming in schools, training for teachers and faculty about youth mental health, and promoting family and youth peer advocates engaging in school systems. What is New York doing to promote school-based mental health programming and behavior interventions in schools? Thank you.
Great question, because as you know, Jennifer, it's in order for our children to really benefit from places, that have a sense of belonging and welcoming, and create the kind of situation that really looks to make sure that their issues are being addressed both from the learning as well as developmental and mental health. And healthcare, as we know, and mental health is extremely important. And to your point, I had a conversation today with a group of stakeholders, and I said, I was at this, the governor stayed at the state, and I clearly heard the comment about if, schools that want this. And I said to all of them, start to ask, start to find out what is the process to do this work. And we know that the governor, for example, some of you may know, it was right in my building where we did the RECOVS, grant, where it's focused on having school districts identify those places that we can create support with social workers and others to ensure that our children are really getting the kind of support that they need in terms of mental health. The other thing that's that the governor has also put out is, I'm sure you know, and it was very strongly aligned with our task force, is the recommendation of these, the mental health clinics is one thing, but also community-based responses, right? So we really understand that there's a continuum of care that needs to be available to not only students, but to families, to families within community. So we have to put together one of the recommendations of the task force is to create this continuum of care. These are wonderful opportunities to create, as you said, the clinics, to create the family opportunity centers are fabulous. I think there was an investment, if I'm not mistaken, with $12 million, and that's funded, that was funded through the federal dollars. Now, that is something that we will also share with you, because the family opportunity centers are just as important as as you spoke about, having these community-based clinics, right? Because the family opportunity centers is OCFS and SED coming together to look at issues of, for example, poverty, education, all the barriers, substance use disorders, mental health care, all of those components need to be part of looking at it from the family opportunity centers as well. So we really need to think about this issue from a continuum of care, across the board. It isn't, it's the care for the child, as the cell, the nucleus, right? But it's also the care that we provide through the family opportunity centers. And that's something that more than glad to share information of the work that's going on right now and the commitment of OCFS and SED to address some of these issues.
And want to co-sign, I think, a few things you said, especially around the economic conditions and the conditions within the community that sometimes inhibit learning. And glad to see that you as a state agency are thinking about those things. Because I know families like ours and young people in our movement care deeply about those, what we call social determinants of health. And so all agencies should be thinking about what we can do to alleviate those conditions that families and young people are learning in and raising their children in. So I appreciate that so much.
And Bradley,
yeah, go ahead.
one other thing I just want to add that you said that triggered for me. I think we have been having more and more meetings in the last 2 years, which I call cross agency work. And we just recently had one where the commissioner, the department, DOH, OMH. I mean, we are coming together realizing that this is not work that we can do alone. And what we're finding is that those intersections are so critical and so important. And so the communication is starting to happen where we are leaning on each other so that families are not having to call and go to 10 different places to to deal with the kinds of supportive environments that they need, but localizing those, and also creating ways that we, in terms of cross-agency work, can really be responsive to families and communities, so that we remove some of these barriers that they encounter and the frustration that comes with trying to get the kind of support for their children and for the families. So I just want to make sure that, you know, that gets out there, that the cross-agency work, as a result of your advocacy, has really found what I call, you know, the seeds have been planted. And the good news is that we are listening, we are hearing you, and we realize that we can't do this kind of work in isolation. So thank you for the advocacy around this.
Well, we really appreciate that. And like any good gardener, it doesn't just stop at the seeding. We have to
Right.
follow things through all the way to the end. And so I really appreciate that. And we really believe strongly in this idea that no child is as simple as one single system. They don't just walk through one door, they carry with them so much. And it will take many systems working together. So we really are delighted to hear you say that. Thanks for giving us all the credit. I'm just kidding. Let's pass it on to the next person here. Melinda, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Good evening,
Go ahead.
Commissioner. Oh, thank you, Brad.
I'm not hearing you. Melinda, I lost.
We lost your,
Yeah.
we heard you for a second and then you
I'm
lost your,
I
you go.
apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, let me start all over. Good
Sure.
evening, Commissioner.
Good
My
evening.
name is Melinda Agnew. I am from Syracuse, New York, and I am a parent with lived experience. So my question is, when circumstances cause disruptions in a student's education, be it suspensions, mental health crisis, or others, what will schools do to mitigate learning loss by connecting students with alternative learning, home instruction, or tutoring to help students continue to receive an education? Also, there are large stretches of time where students like my own child do not receive any instruction or coursework at all. What will New York State do to make sure these disruptions don't result in young people not receiving an education?
Absolutely great question. And I particularly, you know, looking at the alternative learning, I hope that in this process, the alternative learning is not the priority, right? The priority needs to be, how do we create those learning environments that, as I said earlier, are welcoming, are validating, make students feel that they are very much a part of the fabric. How do we create school climate and nurturing places where children truly feel safe, but not just safe, but also not just safety, but safe in a way that when they're having you know, any kind of fear, concern, or any kind of emotional, as most of us, even adults, sometimes have difficulty, right? That they have mechanisms, that there are in school settings, that there are ways of mitigating, there are ways of responding to these issues through, you know, counseling, opportunities to, I mean, I will tell you, being from Syracuse, we were just on a visit recently where we went into a physical therapy room where the children had running water, beautiful sound, opportunity, you know, on mats to really, truly just decompress about their anxiety or whatever they were experiencing before returning to class. And it was a very soothing place that was quite welcoming and quite encouraging as part of the restorative practices in that school. And you know, one of the things that I've learned in my career, you know, some of you may not know this, but my background was working with children in residential, children who were obviously, you know, the old Site 8s, which we got rid of the term socially, emotionally disturbed, which I hated the term, but, you know, and we've learned that you don't take children, no different than adults, you don't take them from boiling to cooling without that simmering in the middle. And so understanding some of the cultural issues, right? Understanding some of the language that we use to be responsive, understanding some of the issues that create that create additional conflict, and body language that looks confrontational versus body language that gives the signal of saying, I hear you, I feel you, I'm here with you. And guiding the students through opportunities of taking them from that simmering to that cooling place. So we are very, very much encouraging the restorative practices, but also creating school environments that don't have to get to that, to your question about the alternative learning, but that have built-in places and spaces that afford our students those opportunities to really, truly get the kind of support, mental health support, counseling support that just sometimes allows them to have those conversations, to, give, someone an opportunity to help them, right? To help them think of ways of managing the challenges and difficulties that they may be experiencing at a given moment or at a given time. So, I absolutely do not like the word disruption, because I think in some places we define, we use the term and we define behavior that is really truly behavior where the student is, or the child is having anxieties or difficulties that very much need that mental health process. And we see it and define it as a disruptive type of situation. So we want to make sure that through these community-based responses and treatments, that we can keep children in school, learning and being supported, and being, anytime you remove a child from school, that child internalizes that, and the family internalizes that. And it doesn't, and I know this is simple, but it almost becomes a place where it's not welcoming. It's a place where I don't belong, I don't feel connected to. So, we have to step back sometimes and look at what is the message, while it may look immediate, but what is the long-term message for that family and for that child? So we have also, to your point, through last year, Commissioner's Regs, we did talk about, when we have children in a hospital or, instructional at home, that we increase. As you know, it used to be the K through 6, now we've increased it to 10 hours, and the 7 through 12 for the high school, we increased it to 15 hours. But you know what? That is not good enough. That is only increasing additional time so that they do not lose more time than they're already losing by not being, because schooling is not just about the academic part. It's also the social emotional connection is really of value. And when they lose that, or they feel the disconnect, right, it clearly has a sense of, for them, of internalizing that rejection. And so that internalizing of rejection is a lot more work than keeping them feeling connected and figuring out what are the things we have to do to support and to strengthen that connection. So my first stop is, let's work on the connection. Let's work on strengthening the connection, creating the spaces for opportunities that will, keep the student feeling even when I am at, I'm in a situation where I'm, I'm frustrated or I'm having challenges or difficulty, that I'm still connected, that school is still an extension of my family. When you disconnect the student, then they feel like it is no longer an extension of that family. So, we want to make sure that we address those needs. And to the earlier point of Jennifer, the continuum of care has to be a major component of this work. And we're hoping that across agency, we can really create this continuum of care, on all levels. But great question. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'm hearing, I really appreciate that response, Commissioner, and I'm hearing, as much as you're prioritizing alternative learning in the interim, that really you're prioritizing is to stop the severing of those connections, meaningful connections that you're talking about in the first place, and really putting your energy there. And I think that is deeply important. So thank you for it's really great to hear you say some of these things, and also the point about that this isn't just about academics. School isn't just about academics. That I feel rings very true to so many experiences that we hear in the community. So thank you for that. I'm going to now pass. First of all, Zach's buzzing in my ear. People that are in the audience, if you have questions that you want to ask, you could put them into the Q&A. If there's time, we may select a few, and if not, we can follow up afterward. So next up, I'm going to ask Crystal to ask her question.
Hi, good evening, Commissioner. My name is Crystal Rose, and I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I'm a proud mom of a very exuberant 10-year-old. And my question that I have is, through the individualized education plans, my son is meant to have occupational therapy in his school, which unfortunately is only available in a limited capacity inside of school, forcing me to go outside of the school for further support. His teachers don't seem to understand the need for occupational therapy, how it impacts him in the classroom. Too often, it seems like the school systems do not understand their responsibility to follow the IEP, but the teachers don't understand the needs of the students like my son can play outside of the classroom, or how the underlying challenges impact my son's experience of school. If the IEP for students is focused on sensory issues or difficulty with handwriting, why grade them poorly if they have trouble performing with those activities? There seems to be a disconnect here. And what can we do to bridge the gap in this lack of understanding? Could there be more training and professional development? Could there be a role of the family and youth peer advocates to bridge this gap?
Great, absolutely a great question. And I'm going to start by saying that, and most of the IEPs that are developed in terms of, our Committee on Special Education, have a requirement, as you know, whether it's OT, PT, speech, whatever the related services are, you have your program recommendation, right? You have your related services. It is, and I'm going to say it and say it clearly, it is a violation of special education law and regulations if a school only makes the kind of related service available outside of school. Okay, I want to know that if that is happening, your organization needs to get in touch with us. I want to know that, because the school has an obligation to provide those services within that school setting. That is part of the recommendation. You were told school X is an appropriate, that's the language. I was a hearing officer, so I can tell you exactly how the language says, this is an appropriate setting for your child. Why? Because number one, it could be a co-teaching model, it could be, the kind of setting, small setting. It has a per pupil teacher assistant relationship. It has these services. If those services are not part of it, then it's an incomplete recommendation. And so I would say, I want to know if that is happening. Now, obviously, there are parents who prefer to have, and will request that, that the, which by the way, the unfortunate part of this, what I'm about to say, is that when they request outside services, an OTPT, the amount that's set for those services is so challenging to find somebody to do it for that. I think you know that. It's just, I mean, I think it's been that since I was a hearing officer way back. I don't think that that's been changed. So I would say make sure that you do have either directly or through your organization to get in touch with us. CSC must identify, the kinds of supports that students need, and that schools must provide those services, because that is what you were promised as an appropriate setting for your child. The other thing I would say, when you were talking about, and you made reference to understanding what the needs are, part of that, and you were talking about whether it's dysgraphia or dyslexia or, some other, that is training that we are very much committed to, as we've been doing, even in our literacy briefs that we have on the website, and in our work with Dr. Lasso from Harvard University, understanding the whole issue of literacy for children and how they acquire it, as well as, to your point, how students demonstrate what they know, right? And so a great deal of this is about professional development and training of our teachers to have the kinds of skills that they need to ensure that they are delivering a highly, that they are highly qualified, and then in fact that they are delivering the kind of response to your child, but children in those classes. So we want to make sure that our teachers that are going into our classrooms are prepared to be as fully responsive with the kinds of knowledge base and skills that they need to ensure that our children are acquiring the skills that they need to be successful. So please let me know if that's not happening. Definitely you could write to us directly, and I will tell you, it's betty.rosa@nysed.gov. So send that to me, and we will make sure that our special ed response and makes sure that the school understands that that's something they have to provide. But thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for giving out your email. And for everyone listening, she does respond. So this is her real email. So thank you so much for that. And Crystal, if you don't mind, I offer a follow-up, because I know we talked in preparation for this question that you understand intimately as a parent that it is your right, and it's just your child's right to have these needs met and to have these accommodations. And where we see most often is, I think schools may understand that, but it takes sort of accountability. And Crystal, you were talking about how it became sort of your part-time job to be navigating the school system, the CSEs, and that not all parents have time to do that, or have the knowledge necessary. And so, part of Crystal's question, Commissioner, was about the role of family peer advocates or youth peer advocates. And I want to uplift this because in the typed question someone asked, Amanda Marie asked, how do we bring outside advocates into the school systems? It feels like they're not welcome there. Often is the case. And so I guess just to ask you a little bit more about that idea of what can we do to partner together to sort of encourage family peer advocates and youth peer advocates who have really lived this and know what it's like as a parent to navigate it and can actually transfer those skills and help improve outcomes for new students.
So I think the point that is critical in this to your statement about Crystal having this knowledge base and knowing that, for example, Crystal can go in with you, Brad, as a parent advocate, right, to be with you, so that when you're going through the conversation with the committees on special education, that you have somebody with you that has either gone through it or has the knowledge base of what the due process proceeding is. What are the options when there's no agreement? What are the options to really truly sometimes even challenge, right, the process? So what I would say is that we're more than glad, and we can do this with your organization, we're more than glad to really have an opportunity to go over the specifics of advocacy and parents' role in terms of advocates in the due process proceedings, right? For example, we just recently have advanced, particularly in New York City, since you're from Brooklyn, we have the oath bill that, knock on wood, we were able to get through, which really makes the hearing officers that hear the cases full-time versus part-time, right? But in the process, we're also working with New York City to do some pre-work to help parents not to have to, go to a hearing, but rather to do some of the resolution ahead of time. I would be more than glad to have an opportunity to work with parents who want to lend their support as parents are going to the CSEs, whether it's for, to be as a supportive partner or, knowledgeable. We train our hearing officers. We could do kind of a similar mini training from understanding your rights, parents' rights, when it comes to the whole CSE proceeding, as well as the due process proceeding, right? More than glad to make that, if your organization wants to have a mini opportunity to do a little bit of that training, more than glad, Crystal, to support you with that, and really, create ways of helping parents, parents for parents in this process. Great idea. And again, Bradley, you can send me a little note and as a reminder, and we will set it up to have this as many parents. We can do it virtually so that we can, get some of the basic, and then as you go through the process, you have other volunteers, and we can keep it as a potential pilot that we may find that, it may be a statewide opportunity for parents, supporting parents in this process. So.
Oh, I'm almost speechless. I appreciate that so much, Commissioner. We'd love to follow up on that idea. I think
Okay.
that's truly brilliant. And
I'm making a
seeing
note of
nods.
it, Bradley,
Yes.
that you're going to follow up. I'm making a note. Absolutely.
So we're
And I'll-
Commissioner. Thank you.
Crystal, thank you for raising that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we've got some work to do, Zach. Let's not forget. And then I'll pass now to Danielle for the last question.
Thank you, Brad. Hello, Commissioner. My name is Danielle Winter, and I'm the Youth DEI Engagement Coordinator at Families Together in New York State, and I am a college student. I'm from Bronx, New York.
Yay.
So
I'm from the Bronx, so we're in the Bronx. I'm sorry to make it personal. We're in the Bronx.
I I dread this question because I'm not familiar with the neighborhood. I recently moved there. But it's like near Soundview.
Oh, okay. Well, I have to tell you, Soundview was my first district. I mean, I was a superintendent for the entire Bronx, but Soundview, where, I mean, basically you have, believe it or not, you have the Bruckner cuts Soundview into two sides, but all of that, including Hunts Point, I had Soundview, Hunts Point, and the school district had schools in Throgsneck, and I used to say economically trilingual because I had the Throgsneck on one side, I had in the middle Soundview, and then of course Hunts Point all the way on the other side. So, but welcome to the Bronx. We're always, I mean, I grew up in the Bronx, but we're always excited about newcomers, as they say. But now
Thank you.
you're part of the Bronx family.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so my question to you is, young people want help and to learn about their emotional health.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, there are significant barriers to initiating or seeking out these services. Sometimes parents are not okay with their child seeking help and students needing their parents' consent to engaging these services, especially if they require insurance. Once a young person learns of these barriers, they sometimes give up. There are examples of alternatives that don't necessarily rely on insurance or need parental consent to engage in services. For instance, in New York City, there's the Relationship Abuse Prevention Program, RAP, and the Early RAP program. What can we do to remove barriers to young people initiating their own care, mental health journey in the school system?
So I'm going to tell you, and you'll probably find that in that space that you're in Soundview, we have a lot of shelters. We have also homelessness. We also have many students that, to your point, are living in very challenging settings. So we support the issue. Consent should never be viewed as a barrier, right? We know that. Similar to the whole issue of insurance, to your point, we have a responsibility and an obligation to ensure that we really address the issue of our young people without necessarily having the consent issue. I know that, for example, you'll find some organizations like Children's Aid Society in your backyard and others, a New York Family, I mean, different organizations that really provide school mental health professionals that will work with the students and will work with them without necessarily, like, for example, when I was principal of 218, Children's Aid Society was my partner, and I had a mental health clinic, and it didn't matter whether they had insurance or not. We provided the services, and in some cases, we created the opportunity for students to have the kinds of resources that they needed with or without consent. And we know that we try to broker these relationships with the parents, because sometimes there's the fear factor. And what we try to do is really assess, and this is very personal, right? To assess what is going on. And sometimes it's brokering those relationships, because sometimes the students fear, and the fear may be real. In some cases, it's just, more the fear of young people feeling that they can trust, and so we try to build on those relationships. And that's why, to me, what I said earlier, the family opportunity centers are just really great ways of bringing the family together, focusing on the young person, and then figuring out how to build those trusts. Sometimes it's even meeting, I've had situations where you meet with the parent and you engage the parent without, violating the trust of the young person, but engage with the parent in a much more general way to build the kind of relationship and support the parent, because sometimes the parents have gone through their own issues, right? As young, as young adults, and then now this is the only way that they know how to respond to their own children. And so what we try to do is work with the parent to really begin to think of ways of connecting and reaching and finding ways of doing the work together. So bridging that, that barrier and negotiating and finding, gaining the trust and helping build those trust building relationships is essential. The other thing that I think is important in this process is that you first build the trust with the, with the individual child or student, and then slowly but surely expand on that. And even if it's just a trust builder on something that happens over, an activity at the school, right? It is a good way to, what I call the starting point. So I do think that, to your question, we have to take a view of the barriers in terms of mental health treatment and address it, albeit whether there's insurance or not. And we can't, we can't just ignore the issues and the needs of our young people. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to pop in for a quick second to welcome Senator Shelley Mayer, who's joined us. Senator, thank you so much for taking time. I know that you're in session today, right? And you have committee meetings all day and lots and lots of
just
people.
voting, and we just finished. So I ran back to make sure I could get
Well,
here.
we understand that's why you're here, as James Taylor would say. So we appreciate you joining us here today too. We've had a really wonderful conversation with Commissioner Rosa about, and you know very well that she's very sharp and knows everything about all the questions that we're asking. She's got very wonderful, wonderful answers. And this is all being recorded and will be on our website. We'll be happy to share it with you if you're interested in seeing more about some of the questions that were already asked.
Yeah.
We want to take a moment to ask a question that specifically would be addressed to the senator, and give the commissioner a moment to just breathe and maybe have a sip of water or something. But I want to turn it back over to Brad Hanson, our Director of Public Policy, to ask a question.
I'm going to use my moderating and facilitating privileges. Just briefly, Paige, maybe give the senator a chance to introduce herself to the audience and share any good tidings you want to share from what's happening at the Capitol before I ambush you with a question.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad I could get here. And thank you to my friend, the commissioner. She held it down for me when I was in the middle of voting on the redistricting maps, which is a big deal here and today. So I apologize for being late, but as soon as I was finished voting, I ran back because this group and the questions that parents have asked and family members have stood up for is so important to me. Like the commissioner, this whole fight for education is very much about parents having a voice, families having a voice. What we are doing here collectively, the Senate, the Assembly, our first order of business here is fighting against the governor's proposed cuts to every school in the state. And so all of our sort of bandwidth right now in the budget fight is about trying to get schools the resources they need to serve every kid. And every child, regardless of their needs, deserves to have and is entitled to have a sound basic education, which really means all of their needs to the best of our ability are met. Now, it's not going to be perfect. We're very honest about that. But we fight for the resources for every school, every public school particularly. And then we work together with the state education department to try to see that these promises are carried out for every student. And again, any of us who have been parents or in a system or worked in a school district know it's a complex place to work. And there are many different challenges and competing interests. But For me, the reason we are doing this and I am doing this is because of the kids. This is our responsibility. This is our obligation. Here, we are to be not quiet advocates, but loud advocates for these kids. And so thank you for giving us the opportunity to come by and to be sure that, you know, I answer your questions the best I can. I'm very honest about what we can and can't do here. Can't work every miracle, but we can try to do better for every student, and that's our commitment. So
Thank
now I'll
you.
take the hard questions.
Of course, thank you. So I'm just going to ask you every question that's been asked already in rapid procession. I'm just kidding. We've been talking a lot about with the commissioner about youth mental health and supporting students within the classroom, also outside in the community. Just to give you a little context to this conversation, part of it too is questions about the safe and supportive report and task force that the commissioner released last January that really, in our view, parallel the Solutions Not Suspensions bill, especially in its intention of keeping young people in the classroom, for not penalizing young people and forcing disconnection from their fellow students, from their community. And I know you also value this idea. So I wanted to ask you just, what is it looking like for Solutions Not Suspensions this year? What can we do to continue pushing the needle around alternatives to suspensions, restorative practices in schools? So many of any one of these questions the people asked could have related to unmet needs that happened inside the school, in the classroom, that often, especially for young people with disabilities, Black and Brown young students, LGBTQ, economically disadvantaged, result in them being pushed out and being denied an education. So just wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on that, and what do you see as potential solutions in this session?
Well, let me back up a little bit on Solutions Not Suspensions and explain where we are and what happened last year. So the bill has been around for a long, long time and nothing ever happened. We know there's a disparate impact, particularly on Black and Brown young men, more than anyone else, in suspensions and other disciplinary action taken in schools. Some schools, including, for example, Yonkers, where I'm from, have really moved towards a restorative justice model, but many districts have not. And even if they have, there's erratic, participation. So Senator Jackson, to his credit, Robert Jackson, who has been sort of the leader on equity in school funding, said, we've got to do something. And we decided to have 2 hearings. And we had a hearing in Albany and we had a hearing in New York City. And in both cases, we heard from many, many people, including many students who, for the most ridiculous, modest of reasons, were subject to disciplinary actions in their schools. Largely children of color. And there were parents too who spoke about what happened to their kid. I am all about pragmatism. My job here is to get stuff done, not to aim for the perfect, because this is a place full of compromise. We all know we are grown-ups. We can have 20 years of a perfect bill sitting on a shelf, and we can have a short time and get to a better bill that moves us ahead. So to his credit, Senator Jackson said, I can't get to perfect. It's not going to pass. There's opposition, there's concerns. Let's do the best we can and try to move it forward. So he amended the bill. Many of the advocates said, not good enough. I say credit to Senator Jackson because he wanted to get something done. We couldn't move that bill either because the people had concerns. But I think when you say what will happen, we are committed to trying to move this issue along. During COVID, at the height of COVID, when kids were not in school and so much was virtual or hybrid, there was a reduction in suspensions. But once kids came back and behavior was out of sync with pre-COVID behavior, particularly for young kids, suspensions went back up, particularly in New York City. And there's data about that. So my view is, okay, now we really have this problem. A kid didn't see peers for a year, sat in front of the TV, tried to do his homework virtually, all the frustrations. didn't really have the chance to grow up socially as well as he would have in school. And now, you know, is penalized for some very modest offense or a very young child. And that's one of the things I think we can do. These youngsters in kindergarten and first grade being suspended. Not acceptable to me, not acceptable under any circumstances. Take the kid and help them figure out what happened here, and take the family and help them figure out what happened here. So credit to Senator Jackson, he amended his bill. Now we're stuck in the budget fight. And as I explained, all of our energy is in pushing back against the governor's cuts to every district, including the city of New York, significant reduction in what they would have gotten if she hadn't changed the funding formula, which she tried to do, and we're trying to fight her on that. So once we finish with that, at the end of March, we have to revisit these things like solutions, not suspensions. Can we get consensus? I do not know. We worked with the teachers union, the superintendents, the principals, the PTAs, state education department, everyone who has a voice. You have to make sure your voice is heard. And so what can you do? Keep up the pressure if this is a priority that you want something done on this issue. We hear your voices. Parent and family voices are extremely important here, but sometimes they're overshadowed by the people with lots of money that have paid lobbyists that stand here in the halls all day. You're not in that group. So you gotta make sure your voice is heard. And, you know, our members, my colleagues that represent the state Senate from New York City, from the other big cities around New York, we hear you. We hear you, but we want to make sure if this is a priority, you make us know that. We need to be held accountable. At the same time, we're honest. We can't get perfect. We're going to tell you. And, you know, you may say, no, that's not good enough. And we may say it's the best we can do, or we can say, no, it's not good enough and we shouldn't do it. But I always say, like, let's presume we're grown-ups and we're trying to get something done. One of the things people hate about Washington is they're not grown-ups and they can't get anything done. That's not here in Albany. We are trying to make change in lives and do the best we can.
Excuse me, Senator, I appreciate your candor. Earlier, Commissioner Rosa gave us an assignment. We have to follow through this idea of building training for parents so that they have the skills around due process and CSE meetings. And you've also given us an assignment, and that is to advocate extremely hard to get the version of the bill that we think families and students deserve. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate your allyship in this fight.
No, thank you. I just want to second what the commissioner said. You know, the commissioner, like me as chair of education, I do hear from parents who don't know what to do. And that is true always, but certainly the cities and the big 5 cities of New York, Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, Yonkers, and New York City, where there are more kids than anywhere else. Parents are at a loss. It's a hard bureaucratic thing to fight with your principal and to fight with the guidance counselor and the social worker. You need to learn the tools. So if you can the more education you can share, the better it is. Better for these kids too.
Senator, we have Crystal who is we're going to pilot for due process CSE work, parents helping parents during that
Fantastic.
entire process. So we're going to start a small pilot with her and the team. And,
Right.
you know, that'll, will help parents when they go into the CSE
Hearing.
process. Yes. Mhm.
Great. That's fantastic. Congratulations, Crystal. Good. I'll
Well,
be
and
sending everybody to you. I'm sorry to say.
that's exactly why we're here, really, Senator and Commissioner, is to be that voice for families, but also to support and empower families to be their own advocates and the advocates for their children. And we're really proud to have Crystal on our staff as part of our workforce development and training. And that's exactly what we do, is train family members and family peer advocates. So we are thrilled to be able to do that and then bring that statewide, because really a pilot is great for the families and young people that will benefit from that. But then we need the support from the state to be able to, we understand that as leaders, you guys recognize the need for this. We just have to find a way to support it and bring it statewide. so that we can really make sure that we, you know, if we have, when Brad talked about solutions, not suspensions, our emphasis is on the solutions. And we don't want to spend as much time talking about like doing away with suspensions, because that's where we get into the opposition. But it's really about what are the solutions, and families often know that, or if they don't, we do, and we can help them to access some of those solutions. But those have to be supported in a bill like solutions, not suspensions, or we'll call it something else that's all about solutions. But the idea is really to empower families and provide access to those solutions.
And I really appreciate the commissioner and senator for joining. I want to forecast to everyone else that's on the attendee list, and of course you two are also welcome if you want to attend any of the other town halls that we're having this next week. I believe we have upcoming a developmental disabilities town hall, an addiction and recovery town hall, and a mental health town hall next week, where we'll be also talking about cross systems issues. Sometimes we find ourselves talking more about education when we get to the DD town hall, right? And the mental health one, because we talk about all the time, these things are so deeply interrelated. So we appreciate all of your time. This will be recorded. Senator Mayor, we will see you at our March 19th event, the Family Empowerment Day in Albany. We got confirmation from Sophia. We'll be having a rally there, having hundreds of families from across the state, making their voice loud and clear for budget priorities like you were talking about, and also forecasting for legislative session. Paige, anything else you want to say?
No, I
Or
just want to point
Commissioner?
out that Zach put in the chat the schedule for all of the town halls, because we also have the following week the two OCFS, the juvenile justice and child welfare town halls. So everyone that's watching, please make note of those and register for those so that you can get the link and join us.
Right.
Thank you again, Commissioner and Senator.
Paige, don't forget the continuum of care. We're gonna really try to get something out so that people have a really good sense on the continuum of care, which includes, you know, all the cross agency and some of the conversations we had about the whole issue of mental health as well as health in terms of the care issue. Thank you. Thank you for the
Perfect.
opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And Paige and Bradley and all of you, I just want to say that such excellent questions here in the chat, expressing the frustration of, you know, and we should try our best to get answers for you on these questions where we can be helpful, because those are really good
Yeah.
questions.
Agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for participating. Thank you for having
you.
us.
See you next month in the well.
Okay,
Thanks,
yes, you will.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.